You're very welcome to Competent Women Ireland's panelist show with me, Roisin de Clerc. And my guest, the first one on the screen, is Gladys O'Neill. Gladys is a women's rights activist and also very active within speaking up against women with disabilities and violence against women. And Catherine Monaghan is joining us, who is one of the founding members of Wicklow Women for Women. It's an advocacy group for women's rights and safeguarding children. You're very, very welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roisin.
Ladies, we're going into March, and it is the 4th of March. And you know, we're going into the week that is like the week of women, is what I'm thinking. It's International Women's Day next week in 4 days' time on the 8th. It's Mother's Day, and we still have the referendum, which is on everybody's lips. I was out canvassing on Saturday, and really people were just wanting to know. Going, I want to get my head around what is this referendum? I haven't heard anything about it, and there's still a lot of undecided. And I think it's all to play for. But I'm finding that when I'm canvassing, that there's an awful lot of no people out there, and the people who don't know, they're really worried about the durable relationship, and I think that's going to be a deciding factor, is the words durable relationship. So ladies, and Mother's Day, I would love to be curious to know what Mother's Day means for you, and International Women's Day that means for you as well.
Well, I kind of look forward to Mother's Day. I'm feeling a bit sad about it this year because I don't know what way this referendum is going to go, and it just seems really sad to me that it is tied in at the same weekend as, firstly, International Women's Day, and then Mother's Day. It feels like a bit of a farce to me. I kind of feel like we're living in a bad, teen dystopian novel. The idea that we could possibly be, voting women out of the Constitution on Friday and then celebrating Mother's Day on Sunday. I don't know if we can really take it seriously. I mean, it's kind of, it's a hard one.
I think it is. There's mixed emotions with me over it.
Yeah, me too.
A lot of mixed emotions like that. It's like we're supposed to be celebrating International Women's Day, but the government and NGOs are all forced into wanting to take the word woman out of the Constitution and really take away that sacredness of mothers. That's my opinion. And here we have Mother's Day and International Women's Day.
I think there was kind of a reason, and okay, we could say it was commercial, cards and chocolates and, commercialism making money out of the idea of mothers. But it is a very special thing, and it is a gift for the ones that want to be mothers to be a mother.
I totally agree, Gladys. It is so commercialized, but it is still just one day where,
a recognition of, you being a mother, that you can only have one mother, whether you like it or not. It is only the one mother. And I think that it is important. And I think as we erode out of our lives, sort of thing, that this word, like loads of people can be mothering, but you can only have one mother that brought you into the world. And I do believe that people can, I have grandchildren. I adore my grandchildren. That's another special loving relationship, that a mother gives to her grandchildren in a motherly way, sort of, and can see all of the things. And I think it's special, and I really feel really strongly, and two of my daughters have just had babies, and when I've watched, have forgotten really what I went through, it's been a long while, but having watched what it takes to bring this beautiful human being into the world, and what their bodies, the power of their bodies doing that, has made me reconnect with the power of woman and of being a mother, and what it does, and it changes their lives completely. They said it wasn't going to, but as soon as that baby was put on their chest, honestly, completely, I don't recognize them,
I think we all thought that, didn't we, before having a baby?
It's not going to change me.
It can't not change you. And I think the unfortunate thing is that, there are so many women, 18-year-old plus young women who, you know, they haven't yet had that experience, and they, just like we thought, they think it isn't going to change them, and they have no idea how much it changes them and how powerful it is and how amazing it is and how hard it is,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, to be a mother, to be,
Mhm.
you know, to give birth, and to be, and the giving birth is only a small part of it. It's the years of
Yeah.
responsibility and round the clock care, and
Mm. Mm.
even when your children are well, and they just have no idea. They don't know what they're voting out, I think.
Yeah, and I think also that the idea that, you know, when they grow up and they go off and have their own lives, that the mother stops, you know, it is a lifetime gig. It is until you're fall off your perch, you know, seriously, you still wonder, you know, and worry. And it's really, I think, oh my God, what is this ridiculous? You know, my son is 44. I mean, why am I, you know, I was like, oh my God, I'm still worrying. And did you do this? And look, at you never lose it. And because
You
these are
don't.
precious gifts, you know, they're gifts that we were given. And
Yeah.
and that's the way I see it. And I would hate any idea of the recognition. You know, we've a really bad history in this country of the way we treat women, and changing language to put in sort of nothingness in there. It does not make my world, you know, any better. They could do a lot to improve lives for women. And I think government could seriously bring about creches. If women have to go to work because they have to pay for a mortgage, you know, and that's the system that we're living in that is so horrendous. You have to have two salaries. But the government could step in, and they could definitely make creches, you know, and they accommodate mothers if they have to leave their child, you know, to keep a roof over their heads, you know, and they could make it so much easier. They're paying out mortgages, second mortgages for strangers. So why couldn't they pay them, you know, until the little child is ready for school?
A carer's
You know,
allowance, essentially. But
yeah,
yeah, and it could be
yeah,
means tested. It could depend on how
yeah,
many children you have. But I
yeah,
think something like that would be ideal. You know,
yeah.
just going back to what you were saying there about even when your children are grown up, that you're always a mother. You know, I think you know, when we think about people when they're in pain, maybe, or you know, and how you know, it doesn't matter what age you are. Like I remembered this story during the week that my dad had told me many years ago. My grandmother died when I was only in my 20s, so this is well over 20 years ago, and I had no concept then, of course, of what it was like to be a mother. But she died suddenly. She was in her 70s. But I remembered him telling me that when she, you know, it all happened very quickly, but that she called out for her mother when she was dying. And it just kind of occurred to me again recently. And I just thought, imagine being in your 70s and still in that crucial moment, you know, and I hope she wasn't in a lot of pain, or, you know, I don't know, but um, it really moved me so much. The idea that even that at the end of your life, you know,
Mm,
in
mm,
your 70s, when you've got, you know, your own children and grandchildren, that you would still call for your mother at that time, you know.
yeah.
No, this week I was sitting here in the living room and I was talking to a couple of people and I said, do you know what I would love? I said, I would love someone just to cook a dinner for me and hand it to me. And I said, do you know what I really love? My mother's cooking.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
just wanted, I'm 57 years of age in
Mm,
April. And all I wanted this week was my mother's cooking. I wanted
mm,
my mother's roast dinner. That's all I
mm,
wanted. Just
mm.
to have even her small little dinner. I just wanted my mother's cooking this week. It's like, and I saw, you know, I
Yeah,
thought I must be missing my mom when I'm thinking like that.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. It never goes away. It never. My own mother, I remember as a child, her crying for her mother, who's
Really.
passed. Yeah, and you know, I often, and when you're a child, you don't really understand what's going on, and you kind of think that's weird. Why would anybody cry for an old lady, and anybody that was over 20 was old or whatever, you know, or even. But yeah, I do remember that as well. Do you know what I mean? That your mother, that the people that had a good relationship with their mothers, not everybody does, you know, but you understand that, you know, it can be tense relationships, but you have one mother, just the one, you
It's
know.
such a primal connection, whether it's a good
Yes,
relationship or whether, like you say,
yeah,
whether it's not a good relationship. And most relationships are complicated, of course,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
never really all
everywhere.
good or all
Yeah,
bad, but
yeah.
it's just that crucial. It has such a huge impact on your life, that
And
relationships.
if you think that people have gone and searched for who their mother was, you know, who, you know, to find out who, if for whatever reason, and in our history, when babies were taken off mothers, and the mothers were told to go off and forget about it, and as we know, that babies were sold and farmed out, in awful horror stories, and yet their search went on. You know, I still, honestly, of all of the movies, and I've seen hundreds and thousands of them, but Philomena, that movie,
Oh yeah.
I have watched it a million times, like and I cry every single time. It just gets right in my soul. I don't know that this and the kindness of, you know, the Philomena herself. You know, I wouldn't have been that kind, you know, but it's just the beautiful story of her searching for her baby. You know, it still made me cry now thinking, you know, him watching going off in the car, and you know, looking out the back window of the car, and
Oh,
she looking out the window. If you remember that scene, and how tearing away a child, a baby, from its mother is. So it's so who came up with this idea to get rid of the word? You know, who decided, you know, that we're to be eroded from the
I think
lag
there is this
from.
idea that we are interchangeable, and if we can pretend that we are interchangeable with men and fathers, then we can all just be kind of units of production.
Mhm,
And anyone can do the job. Your children will be the same, whether it's, you know, a parent or a daycare. You know,
doesn't it? Mm,
the social good comes second after, you know,
mm,
this in this very kind of consumerist world that we live
mm,
in. You know, we're driven by money and
yeah.
big corporations making big money, and that all sounds very conspiracy-ish.
no,
I don't think it's a conspiracy. I
no.
just think that our social well-being is down at the bottom of the list of
Mm.
priorities,
I
And when
also,
you
unfortunately.
sorry,
I
sorry.
also think that a lot of the reality television and television and media, magazines and influencers and celebrities have been marketed to break down the relationship between daughter and mother.
Mm,
And when I was studying media, my media degree, that we did I had to research an awful lot of papers and did a lot of academic research and media studies on, you know, what was the purpose of reality television, and it was to dumb down the younger generation. And when
Mm,
you think now you got, you know, even going for your mother for advice, they don't. They go to social
mm,
influencers for advice.
mm,
They don't go to their mothers or their grannies or their aunts
mm,
anymore for advice. And it seems to be taken away. I know when we were growing up, the older women in our communities were the wise women. If you had a
mm,
problem, even if you didn't know them, what you would knock at the door and go, you know, how are you? Can I have a wee chat? Come in for a wee cup of tea.
mm,
That's
mm.
all gone.
Yeah,
it's so true.
yeah, yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
opinion of it. Where is it gone? That mother and child has a bond. I had something lovely the other day. Catherine, you've only a son, so you'll appreciate this one. It said, um, uh, oh, I have to get this right. A son, a mother's last love is her son. A son's first love is his mother.
Oh,
All right.
oh,
Plenty of
give me a
daughters
lump in my throat.
really
Lump in
upset.
my mouth.
I saw that on Instagram, and I
Yeah.
don't think but that stayed with me. I go, yeah,
That's
because when you
beautiful.
have a son, you know, your first love is your daughter, is your father, then it's your boyfriend, and then it's your husband. But the
Yeah,
last love that you have, whether you have 10 sons or not, is with your sons. No
yeah.
man after that can take away the love that you have for your son or your daughter.
Mm. And you know something, you know, that in the power of women and mothers, the power of mothers that do the most extraordinary things to protect their children.
Mm.
You know, I've always been astonished and absolutely warriors, women, such warriors that protect their children from, for the most part, women. You know, I do agree that not everybody, you know, I'm not silly, you know, sort of thing that everybody is, you know, that every woman is perfect out there and we're all, or we are all perfect. You know, we're all flawed human beings. But for the most part, for survival, for babies to survive, they have to have mothers, you know, or somebody to step into but mostly mothers. But what mothers will do to protect their young is astonishing. You know, in very difficult circumstances, and that's never spoken about. It's not, you don't read about it. It's not on the, you know, you don't do one of those reality programs about, look at this woman, as she was getting the crap bet out of her. She stood behind so nobody could touch her child, you know. She stood in front and took the beatings while the child was being protected. You don't see reality programs about the warrior woman, you know. So yeah, and all of and reality, you know, sort of thing, like of what really women go through, and that will go through to protect their children. You know, I'd love to see more of that. I'd love to see things that actually make sense, you know, sort of that. But I think we all want, or well, not, I don't want, but lots of people just want chewing gum for the brain, just nonsense and just
to be entertained.
yeah,
You know?
just, and I'm not though. There's something wrong with me because I'm absolutely not. This has become pure. I don't know. I blame drugs. I think they're all on drugs. You know,
It's like a
I think there are lots
humiliation
of
ritual. For me, anyone going on to these reality televisions, is it like a humiliation ritual where they just go on to be humiliated and you're going, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed for them all. So, oh my God, you
but you
know,
know something, Roisin, I flicked. I don't know if it's on anymore, but one night bored, and I'm flicking. That's my thing. But you know, flick. I don't want to read. I don't know what. I don't know what I want. Can't go to the fridge again. You know, I just have to stop. So flicking through the television stations, and this naked dating, right?
what?
Like, who? Somebody definitely was out of their head when they come up with this. So it screens, and you see their genitalia, and you pick your date based on that.
oh,
Oh yeah, no, seriously.
has to be a new low.
Oh, well, so here's what the, and so it came, you know, the woman, I don't know what it was it a woman? I don't, can't, well, it was a sort of a woman. She picked the part of the anatomy that she thought was, you know, ideal for a date, you know, as you do, you know, like, and the person came out and had breasts as well, you know, sort of thing. So that was a bit of a, I thought, oh, here, do you know what I mean? I'd rather watch paint dry, you know. So whoever came up with that
It's like the
scenario,
whole, it's like the whole wonderful experience of having a friendship or relationship. And I always
mm,
said to my children, make sure if you're going to choose a partner, a husband, or a wife, make sure that they're your best friend.
mm, mm,
Because, you know, and make sure, you know, that there's a friendship there, and make sure there's respect, value,
yeah,
and appreciation, and someone you don't want to change.
mm, yeah,
And so I'm finding over the years that the media, society, and it is, there seems to be this sort of narrative, and it was drip by drip about even like disrespecting your mother, disrespecting your parents, and you know, your parents has this unconditional love for your children,
mm, mm,
but when does unconditional love end? And when do you have to say, as a mother, and start giving them hard love? It's become, and I think it's happened. What I see, I could be wrong. At time from the Catholic Church, it became politically correct to not give your children, no, even just say to children, no, that's wrong. You know, you can't do that. There seemed to be over the years this political correctness that that the children started telling the parents what to do and how to treat them, or they were going to phone Childline. You know,
mm.
them kind of things.
Yeah, but
Rosie,
Roshan,
that reminds me of,
great.
oh, sorry, Gladys.
No, go work away.
There is a book that I read back probably when my son was, young, maybe he might have been 5 or 6 when I read it. And in all of my years of, talking to parents about homeschooling and because he was homeschooled, Gladys.
Okay.
So I read a lot, and I always read a lot. I've read so many books about, parenting and whatever, all kinds of things. And the one book that I always recommend to people is called Hold On to Your Kids by Gordon Neufeld and Gabor Mate. And the book really, it's what you've just been saying, Roisin, really makes me think about this book, because the book is about having a really solid attachment to your children, so that as they get older and as they get to those, adolescence and those teen years, they will care more about what their parents think than about what their peers think. So the premise of the book is really that, up until, probably the 1950s or so was when the whole kind of teenager culture kind of started. But, before that, most teenagers, most kids, as they grew, they spent most of their time with their family. They might have been at school for a few hours a day, but most of their time would have been with their family. And there wasn't this whole kind of peer pressure teenage culture, which kind of started probably around the 1950s and kind of, went from there. And now it's probably, I don't know, is it at its peak? but the idea is that until then, that if your kids are well attached to you, they should care more, and they should care more about what you think than about what their peers think. And that's the way it was for most teenagers until that point. And I think, if your kids are spending so much time on social media, so much time with their peers, then of course social media and their peers are going to have a lot more influence than you do. So the less, and I suppose there are so many factors in all of these things, but maybe another factor, if people can't afford for a parent to be at home, mother or father, or to be at home at least some of the time, maybe when their children aren't at school, or it's hard to maintain that strong attachment if you just don't have the time together, but I think it is really important having that strong attachment, so your children actually, care more.
But I kind of thought that, and I often wonder, sort of thing, like, I mean, for the most part, I reared my 3 kids on my, as my father called me, a grass widow. I've never heard the statement ever again, or since, or before. So I spent most of the time with them. And so to have some order, otherwise I would I'd be gone, with birds. There had to be no, end of story, no. It's a school night, whatever that, no, it's not happening, sort of thing. So that no worked, and I just never bent from, like, I would be reasonable, do you know what I mean? So, like, but no, you can't have 10 ice creams. It's not work, that's not happening, No, you're not
consistent about your
yeah, and consistent about the no's, and no, they can't stay over tonight. It's it's a weeknight or whatever. Yeah, the weekend is going to be okay. That's not a problem. But I kind of thought it got more difficult. It was starting to get difficult, and sort of wandering around, where are they? Who are their friends? To know who their friends were, to have the friends in the house. So my house was wrecked. I didn't care, sort of thing. I saw who they were knocking around with, who they were with, what they were doing. Well, they tell me I was quite naive, seemingly. They were up to a lot more than, and I thank God I didn't know anything about it, nothing bad, you know what I mean? But I would have been worried sick, but I didn't know. So what he doesn't know literally does not kill you. You don't
and
know.
they turned out quite well as well, I imagine.
Yeah, and they hid it. So now, sort of thing, parents, I wonder, and this is not a criticism, because I think it's such a hard job to be, I adore my grandchildren, but I honestly wouldn't be able for the, what's happening now, sort of thing, all of the knowledge that we have, and, there was a discussion, it was my son's birthday at the weekend, and it was a discussion around the table of, I let my kids go for sleepovers. Sleepovers came to my house. The people sometimes, I lived abroad as well, and sometimes didn't know the people. I trusted my gut. If something felt wrong, that wasn't happening. You know, the sleepover wasn't going to happen, and that didn't happen, or whatever the case may be. But now they won't. They were talking, my children talking about their kids. Absolutely not. Could it be somebody in your family? Could it be, this has just become a living nightmare. It's all worry and no fun, if that makes any sense to you, that
It's like
it's
there's two extremes almost. On the one hand,
Yeah.
parents are afraid to say no to their children. They want to be, they want to be, I think there's this kind of real desire among a lot of people to be liked by, I mean, of course, and your kids are going to love you no matter what.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
I think like you have to be able to say no and to be consistent. And I think, but then there's also this assumption in our society, and this has been, the last few decades as well, I think in keeping with the whole, teenage culture, there's this assumption that your teenager is going to hate their parents. Oh, all teenagers are awful and they all hate their parents. I mean, that's most definitely not my experience, and I don't think it has to be like that at all. But it's interesting, Gladys, like that idea that on the one hand, parents are afraid to say no, but on the other hand, they aren't actually maybe, not all parents obviously, but letting their kids do as much. They don't feel free to let them do things either.
No, that,
They're
there's no
anxious,
going
maybe.
out, playing out on, sort of thing on the green, there's not, that freedom is gone. Again, it's traffic has overtaken that also. You have to keep, that you could, when my kids were young, I could allow them out to play on the green, play around and go to the muck hills and all of this, make dens and all of this thing kids do. And that's not, it's not like in the last century. Do you know what I mean?
We went out and came back for dinner at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, sort of thing. Like, I mean, this is it.
And then they came back for lunch and dinner, and then bedtime.
Yeah. And the kids were out there, and you kept an eye, and other people maybe kept an eye, and and whatever. All of that is gone. That is completely.
Maybe there were more mums. I mean, my mum worked full time, so that was my experience growing up. But maybe there were more mums at home as well. I wonder. So if your kids were out in the estate, there's often a house that you'd be in someone's house, or if you needed a glass of water, you could go into so and so's house, or if someone fell, somebody would see them.
That happened a lot with mine falling, sort of thing, with chins hanging off and stuff like that. And so
maybe more houses are empty now during the day,
empty, or you're not knowing who's in them, or that kind of connection. Like, I still have a problem with this about now I don't know if it's down the country, if it's still the same, or maybe that's changed as well. But there was a time that people just called, hi, I was passing, are you free, have a cup of tea, whatever. That's now people have to make an appointment. You have to get a diary out, I might be free at 1:10 on a Friday for a cup of tea. So who bother, And it's even got to the point now where, and I do it myself, like it's really bad, considering I can't shut up. I mean, will I ring? No, I'll text. And you lose the ability. You literally, if it's not used, you lose.
It's so funny now. We tend to text. Does it suit to does it suit?
Yeah, to have a chat. I ring you for a talk. Like it's gone, and then so everybody's supposedly so busy and up the gazoo, busy. And I don't know. Does anybody smell the flowers? I don't know anymore. Or is it just left to older people to go and smell flowers or have time to smell the flowers?
Do you remember there was, and it's still an old saying, and I think it's true. We need, and it's really diminished now. It takes a community to bring up a child. We all used to come from communities. Communities now have even been divided.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as communities now, or community halls, or I remember growing up in Derry, there used to be community bus trips. Everybody from the community used to go on bus trips.
Wow.
No, I'm not saying we need that, but that community of mothers, of even looking after older people, has gone. Or if you haven't seen an older person within your street, haven't seen them all day, I better knock to see if they're okay.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that now. We've become, it's like we've become. What's the word I'm looking for, ladies?
Isolated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and afraid. Do you know, are you
Yeah.
afraid to upset somebody? Are you afraid
Yeah.
to, you know, are you being a
You don't want to
busybody?
interfere.
Interfere? Are you going to be seen
Yeah.
as being interfering if you're going to ask how somebody is? So it's all
Mm.
of this fear. We're surrounded by it, and you name it. We did all of the horrible things that we're all afraid of. Were there, you know, like I suppose maybe not to the same degree, but now it's fear of everything. It's fear of literally everything, and on this message constantly, you know, sort of thing. Live longer, live longer. Oh no, 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 die, die quick, and nobody to mind you. So you better die quick, you know, and get it over with. Because especially with this referendum, anyway, you know, there'll be nobody to kind of mind, or you can't have a choice of whatever. But in the lives that we lived, they didn't worry about that. They were too busy putting food on the table, keeping a
Yeah.
roof over their heads.
And they
You
didn't
know,
have these things
no,
Yeah.
and the house,
diverting their attention all the time,
yeah,
as they're designed to do. I mean,
yes.
and that's for us adults as well as
I'm
teenagers,
addicted to it. I
you know.
first thing in the morning. I mean, this is I've never done that. I find myself, you know, as my youngest daughter called me, there you are, down the rabbit hole again, you know, sort of head in it, you know, sort of thing. Like, and at least, you know, if we all get together for dinner, that nobody's allowed to have the phone out. At least one evening, nobody, we're all together. That, you know, it's not, there might be some relevance in the discussion about something that's on that yoke, that machine that runs our lives, but that they're not out, that people are. But I just want to tell you this story, and I've said it to my daughters and my son, so they don't do it to their children, you know, in the hope that they don't or ever, because we're all addicted, you know, and it's not. So it's so really boring. I was in having a pizza, nothing, you know, exciting about that, you know, except really nice, and I'm not meant to be eating them, but anyway. So just sitting there, and in came this cutest little girl. Oh my God, I wanted to grab her up and just run away with her, but I think you get arrested or something if you do something like that.
Yes.
But she's a beautiful little uniform, school uniform. So I'd say she was just literally high babies or low babies. She's tiny, tiny, tiny little uniform, tiny little outfit. And she came in with, I don't know if it was her father, I assumed it was her dad, that it came into the pizza place. And there was no words between them. She sat up and her little chin up at the table. She was so small, you know, and the hand, you know. So they ordered her little margarita pizza and whatever he ordered. And she had a screen in front of her because I could see I was that close to her. And in that screen, she was watching her mother. There was no talk now. Watching her mother cleaning the kitchen. No discussion. The father was on his phone, so he had no discussion with the little girl. And all of that time that they were there, not one word passed. And this is a good few years ago, and I still keep that image in my head. So when it came, and her little hand getting up and taking another slice, but she's watching her mom on some, you know, I don't webcam or whatever, if I don't understand the technology, how she, well, I think it was her mother, or else it was just some random woman cleaning a kitchen, you know. And but there was no words, none. And then they finished eating, and he said the one thing he did say to her, "Go get the bill." The little thing got off the chair and went up to the waitress, and that was it. That was it. And I thought, oh my God, I was nearly crying because he could have been sitting there talking to her and asking her about her day, but it's something weird about her watching her mom, you know. It all seems so wrong. So I thought, whatever you do when you go out with your little kids, talk to them about their day. How did they get out in school? What, you know, all of this, you know, and not on a phone, you know. So, but anyway, lecture over.
I remember when we were growing up, you know, television in the 70s, it was like, you know, especially the color television. And like you, we lived in Africa and we lived in Saudi Arabia. So I didn't have the habit of watching television because it was only the old video cassettes back then, you know,
Yeah, yeah, I remember.
and there was no cable television. And I remember even before we moved to Africa, my mother insisted on a Wednesday night we weren't allowed, or Sunday, we weren't allowed to watch television. We had to practice walking, and practice, with the hat on the book on our head, and paint nails and do things. This is when we were about 5, or, if that age, even younger. And she said, no, not everything's about television, and family time, and those that when you eat together and you talk together, and at the family meal is really important, because that is where you talk about things. And I've then as well, what I've always done, those that cook together, the time you're cooking and preparing the dinner, for me, is the time you talk about things you would never ordinarily talk about your day or what happened
Mm.
at school. So I always think preparing the dinner together and then eating it is really, really good family time, or time where you talk about things you wouldn't ordinarily talk about, or you wouldn't have time to talk about,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know.
But do you
True.
remember that poem with Seamus Heaney? I just adore it. I just love that poem. It's the picture that I painted, trying to capture, side by side, when all were at mass,
I love
and
that.
never as close as, they were peeling the potatoes together and the skins dropping in, but that comfortable silence between
Their
mother
heads will
and son.
bend towards each
Yeah,
other.
oh gee, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's beautiful.
beautiful poem, absolutely gorgeous, and never as close as long ever again. That level of preparing something, together, and sometimes, Roisin, you don't have to talk. Do you know, it can be that beautiful, comfortable silence.
Yes.
This presence.
Being
Yeah.
being busy, but busy together. If that makes any
Yeah.
sense. Busy
Yeah.
together and doing something, and closeness. And I have a very strong memory of my own mother. That's when I realized she was beautiful. It's a really child. But I was leaning on the kitchen table watching her, and women in those days were really slim. I just remember
Yeah.
thinking, where's her? She was very tiny. Where's her waist? These kind of, like in the movies, those little waists. But she was stirring the pot, and she had her apron on, and I thought, she's the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I only thought that once, sort of. Because she wore nice, she liked clothes, and aprons, and it was all very things that you're not allowed to be anymore. So
My mother used to keep herself really well.
yeah,
My mother always had her nails polished. She would never answer the door without a lipstick on,
yeah,
and she always wore, she was in her 60s and she was still wearing stiletto heels,
yeah,
but I think the women from the 50s and 60s, they knew how to be glamorous without
yeah.
being, now it's like you're glamorous if you have fake eyelashes
Oh
and
God, yeah.
Botox and, you know,
Mm,
fake nails, which I always say, no, I'm trying to let my nails, be natural,
mm,
grow themselves. Everyone's now going for shellac nails. What happened to actually the skill of looking after your own nails?
mm, mm.
I've done my own.
Yeah.
You just say.
I need to redo. I need to redo,
Yeah, it's
sort of
like a
thing.
girly thing, doing what one another's nails instead of going and getting the shellac nails, which are fake. It's bad for your nails. But there's something that really feminine, sitting down and doing your own nails. Now I can't see, so like if I put it on, I go, God, can I see that? Even with my glasses.
Yeah.
But like, there's something about even mother and daughters doing them kind of things, or friends doing it for each other. And I just think, where has that femininity gone? Mother's Day, International Day, and even everything in Ireland now is about the word woman and mother. And I just wonder, like, what does it mean to be a woman now for us?
I know it's very uncool, you see, to say this stuff, isn't it?
Mm.
And I think also, sadly, a lot of, when you just, when I see so many young women now, everything has become very kind of hypersexualized. I think
Oh yeah.
there's a
Mm,
lot of influence
mm.
from porn. I just
Yeah.
don't want to go
Yeah,
there, but like, there's definitely, everything is, far more, hypersexual than it was
Mm,
30 years ago.
yeah,
mm.
Actually, well, it is more so than 30 years ago. Even 30 years ago, I think, it's probably starting, but certainly in comparison to 50 years ago.
But I think also that there's something what has happened, and again, I probably get crucified for saying this, but women always, no matter what, young girls and women, in my book anyway, always come out the wrong end of this, whatever they're always the baddies. It doesn't matter, you know, what's going on in society. There's always a woman you could blame, you know, for it. And so what this guy had, I don't know where I read it, was only last week, and it wasn't that far. It was one of the big parks, and he was walking his dog, and he was saying, listen, I don't want to be, you know, preachy or whatever, but if you're going to be doing the business or whatever, this is young teenagers in the bushes, just kind of go further on in so that dog walkers can't see what you're at. And I kind of thought, how sad, you know, it's all mucky and sad and disrespectful to the girls. It's always the girls are going to, you know, well, he's never the slut, she's always the slut, you know, or some name labeled, you know, sort of thing on the young girl or the young woman, or the consequences.
It's just much more acceptable for boys.
Yeah, yeah, you know, they're the and nothing has changed as far as I can see. Nothing seems to have changed. They're still great lads, you know, and it's a badge of honor there, you know, sort of thing, and off you go. But the girls are, you know, and it's just demeaning for, you know, for the girls. And I like the idea, just like, I can't bear to look in a mirror. The idea that you'd send photographs of yourself, you know, to strangers, and they're not made do that, but they're, you know, maybe coerced. Maybe they are being coerced. I can't imagine all these young girls, you know, are saying, yeah, this seems like a really cool idea.
I guess, you know, sometimes they might think everyone else is doing it, and that's,
yeah, and if you don't
normalized.
do it, yeah, I have read somewhere where one young girl was talking about, he said, oh, all your mates are doing whatever, something horrible, why aren't you know, you prude, or so there's a label there for not. So it's very hard for them to kind of stand and say, no, I don't want to do, you know, don't want to do that, or whatever the case may be. And it's really hard. Like in my day, you know, you were going to hell. so it's something has gone wrong in between the going to hell and let everybody have a go at you. You know, it seems, you know, there's no balance again, you know.
We've thrown the baby out with the bathwater, as we seem to be doing with everything now.
Everything, yeah.
In terms of, you know,
progression.
So many areas.
Yes, you know.
I remember because what really sticks out in my mind about the over-sexualization of children, I always think back to the Spice Girls. Now, I love the Spice Girls music. I thought it was like, oh my God, but I refused to dress my daughter, in Spice Girl clothes. I still kept her in, you know, 4 and 5-year-old. Then I noticed that a lot of her friends and other children were all wearing the same clothes that Spice Girls were wearing, and children's clothes manufacturers and shops were selling the Spice Girl clothes for 4 and 5-year-olds. And I've always thought, no, I'm not going. My daughter's going to be a little girl. You know, she's going to be a little girl. That childhood is something very sacred. You know, being a little girl, being a sacred, and so I always think that over-sexualization started way back in, let's say, 28 years ago. My daughter's 32 now. So I noticed it, that the overset, you know, the little boob tops and skirts, and then showing the belly button, and, you know, and even...
the 90s kind of, you know,
Yeah. And even the girl bands and the music industry and the boy bands were all manufactured to sell. And then for the branding, and then the merchandise and the clothes. So,
and I think it's so, we just become so desensitized.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, when my son was younger, we had no, for many, many years, actually, even now, we don't have the regular TV, you know, so we just had, you know, he had his little DVDs of Postman Pat and, you know, Thomas the Tank Engine and those things, but we didn't have actual TV. So we never saw advertising or, you know, music videos and things like that. We didn't watch, and we would watch movies on DVD, or you know, he'd watch his little episodes, you know, every so often. And I remember one day when he was, I can't remember what age he was, but I went to get my nails done. This was in Australia, one of those, you know, kind of drop-in salons, and they had a big TV, and I can't remember what was on. It was probably Beyonce or someone, you know, it was a music video, but I so rarely ever saw normal television. I think I had just become really sensitized to it. And I was looking at this music video. It wasn't Beyonce. I can't remember who it was. It was some rapper probably, but it was like soft porn. I couldn't believe it. Just, I was like, what is this doing on in the middle of the day in a shopping center in a nail place? You know, and I just thought, actually, that's what, you know, a lot of people are just watching this stuff all the time, and they're completely desensitized to how sexual this stuff is, you know, even just advertising for, you know, beauty products or clothing, you know, if you're not seeing that stuff all the time, you become really hyper aware of how sexualized it actually is. And I mean, I consider myself to be a very liberal person.
Yeah, the fashion industry itself. If you look at even at the red carpets, even now, this last 2 years, I go, oh my God, are they paid? They must be told to wear what they're wearing, because it's not even nice. It's not even the fashion industry.
Nothing feminine about it, you know. Yeah. You know, I think the most beautiful women, when I look at women in the 50s, and I look at it wasn't all roses and sweet, and, you know, we know that. But say the actresses and stuff like that, and they all had, you know, horror stories that we read about now, the casting couches and all of the horror stories, you know, that they went through. But in their daily lives, you know, sort of thing, that just the cool kind of trousers they wore, you know, sort of thing, with flat shoes, and, you know, they weren't exposing every bloody thing all over the shop, you know. And I'm not a prude, you know, it's not a prude, it doesn't look good, it, you know, it doesn't do any service to anybody, you know, for, I don't know, maybe some man somewhere, I don't know, but it just, I don't know, women were always had to go and sell something, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just this expectation that that's what they do, and that's
that's what they have to do, you know. No man is asked to go and show his wiggly bits to sell a record, you know what I mean, and whatever. And it just seems, you know, that it's getting more progressively worse, and it's just absolutely horrible. I saw something today and I just thought, and it came up on my phone, I don't know why, but what's his name, he was one of the Kardashians' one husbands. I don't know one from the other, couldn't tell you what the crack is, if he's still alive, dead, or he's married to them. But he has supposedly a new wife, supposedly. And I don't know what, she had nothing on.
West, Shaman West.
Yeah, your man. Yeah, he's a big fan. And
I don't know his name, though.
Little waif of a yoke with, you know, I don't know, they don't look like normal boobs, so I presume they're not. You know, they're Californian ones, you know, and made to measure, whatever the case. But the whole thing, so it was a bit of plastic or something she had on her to cover it. And I thought, you know, why? You know, like,
I guess it's become harder and harder to kind of provoke a reaction. Like, so people are needing to just get more and more extreme to get a reaction.
Yeah, look at me. And then you have little young ones who are looking at that and thinking, you know, this is what I have to do to get attention, you know, to get noticed. And it just seems really sordid and sad. And I wish they would, you know, they say sex sells and all that kind of carry on. Well, you know, they reached its market now for my age group, huh?
Has that reached its peak now?
I hope so.
Sales and even the fashion industry and the music industry. Has it reached its peak, do you think? Is it all coming to a head now?
Can I ask a question though, Roisin? This has been bothering me since I became 100, right? Now, so when you look at the statistics, you know, sort of thing, older people, you know, 50 plus, have more money in their pockets to spend on themselves than, say, the young ones and whatever, the ones that are doing the mortgages and the babies and, you know, sort of thing. So the older woman has more money to actually spend on herself. And yet the market doesn't go for her. Do you know what I mean? Why is that? Do you know, like, it has to be a young one with a bit of plastic hanging off bits of her body.
It might be harder to market towards older women because we're more discerning.
Yes, we know that, you know, get lost.
You know, you know, whatever. We don't, you know, well, I'd like to think that we don't care as much. I mean, I don't care as much about what other people think of me as I did when I was 25.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Um,
But they are trying to sell, even when I was in the hairdressers, when I thought, all that, I was getting texts and saying, well, they're looking for on prime time, looking for somebody with disabilities to speak about the no and caring. And I thought, oh my God, Gladys will do it, right? I just went into meltdown. And it was in the hairdressers. And if I don't have my glasses on, I can't actually read properly. I think I can, but I can't. And so it said, well, oh, they found somebody. That's what I thought. And I thought, oh, that's such a pity. Because I wanted to be nice. And I'm in the hairdressers and I'm getting my hair done and I'm hoping to get my nails done and look, and I'm talking to the beautician and all of this. Oh, that's a pity, thinking, they've got somebody. And then Circa wrote, no, Gladys, they haven't got anybody. I nearly died.
Do you think though?
are you doing it, Gladys?
Huh?
Are you
No,
going?
they never came back to me,
Okay.
sort of thing. So I was let off, but straight away it was straight into the mode of, oh my God, what will I look like? Oh Jesus, I need to get my hair done. Oh my God, I was asking the girl,
Well, it's a big deal.
can you put stuff in my face to make me look 18? Here she was, what? So, what's wrong with you? So, it never goes away, sort of
What
thing.
has happened to actually beautiful women? No, because this is what I look at now. I look at women who were absolutely beautiful, and they've destroyed their faces. We're putting in Botox, and their faces don't even look. They don't resemble who they are. It completely disfigures their whole face. And what has happened to actual beauty?
I think it's
even
become really affordable to have that work done. So the standard for maybe the bar for who needs that work done has really kind of lowered because it's affordable. It used to be something that just celebrities did.
Yeah.
Now it's affordable to everybody and anybody. So maybe it seems to a lot of young women like a luxury, like a treat that they can afford to do for themselves.
But you know what I read there yesterday? There's an investigative journalist, I think with RTE, who's uncovered coming into the country Botox and all of those fillers and all of that horrible stuff. Coming in and going to anybody once you have the money to pay for it, nobody knows exactly what's in it.
No,
and going to like Tupperware parties, come for your Botox party, and it cannot be done unless it's been done by a dermatologist or actually probably a dentist, because they know all of the nerves and the face and wherever, all the dangers. And the idea that young women, would be putting themselves through that horror danger from somebody who doesn't have a clue what they're doing.
I'm sure there's lots of money in it as well.
There is.
Lots of money in it.
I was
Yes.
gonna get my nails done like 2 years ago, and the lady, who owns the beauty salon, came over to me. Oh, look, would you like to come to this doctor? He's coming here once a month to for Botox and fillers. And I looked and I said, what? I just said, no, I'm not into that. I believe in growing old grace. I thought, one, that's an insult. You're selling that to me. And then it's like you're actually telling me I need fillers and I need Botox. And I'm going, where does it come? And where does like overselling stop in the industry for women? Because in all magazines and everything knows that the industry that is affected or related to women sells, and that's when it makes the most money. And it's like, where does what is the media? And one is, I think we're coming to a time where it's ending the time of celebrities and influencers marketed. So I'm going to say that again. It's come to the time of marketed, manufactured influencers and celebrities being paid to sell things to ordinary women. We've had enough now. We don't want that anymore. We want ordinary women going back to where it was, recommending, because we know they're being paid to do that.
And the most expensive stuff as well, sort of thing. Like, I mean, but I went to a hairdresser's last year, I think. And the girl, I don't, she was lovely in her own natural. What I could see behind was her natural. She had the most beautiful eyes, but she stuck on these things on it, so she looked like, I don't know, they were like windshield wipers. It was just, she had hair extensions, she had a waist that size that nobody has anymore, and a backside that had, it's out of a cartoon, right? And she had lips that, well, actually, she couldn't really talk to me properly because they weren't moving. And she was telling me, and she was, I think, from Lithuania. Not that has anything to do with it, it's just part of her. And I thought, I'd say behind all of that mess is this beautiful girl, but she looks ridiculous. And she was telling me she got engaged. She was making me laugh because she was putting the engagement ring into her bra to keep it safe, right? Into these not real boobies, these manufactured ones. And she was putting the ring in there because she was engaged to some guy that she met, and he lived in Spain or something, and she visited him every now and again or whatever. And I thought, what kind of guy is he? Because she didn't look, like when you take off the nails, the eyelashes, the lips, the wig, the backside, I'm sure it falls off or whatever. It was like, Jesus, what, So there has to be the man who wants that look. He wants to be hanging out of, it's all distorted. There's.
What has happened to love?
Huh?
What has just when you're saying that, I'm thinking, what has happened to love?
Yeah.
What has happened to what we spoke about earlier? That friendship, that attraction, and just enjoying someone's company.
I think we've
Instead of
lost
having
touch.
to have.
Yes, I was just going to say, when I think about it, like, I think, social media and the internet and our phones have to be a huge part of this picture, but we've lost touch with nature.
Yeah.
And part of that is we've lost touch with our natural bodies as well. We're seeing if so much time is spent on the phone, on social media, I think just actually getting back in touch with nature, surely, and that goes in so many areas for children who are confused about their gender and their bodies. Doing things in nature, being in touch with your body and what your body can do. Just keeping it a bit more natural and a bit more real and honest.
Is okay. We've been told, and all these kids are told, who you are is all right. You're grand. Do you know what I mean? One girl showed me, she got a tattoo, it was tiny, you could barely read it, but it just said you're grand. I thought it was really cute because you're grand. Leave yourself alone, and things will get better if you're a bit uncomfortable, or things will, nothing stays forever. Altering their bodies does. And I
out of touch with reality.
Out of touch, and the idea, there was this girl that I was talking to, and she was really desperately upset because her young daughter had taken it upon herself to go to Turkey at 20 years of age. I mean, I was hysterical for the kid, and I didn't even know her. She was having a bum lift, the most dangerous operation you can have, and she was 20 years of age.
I think the Kardashians have a lot to answer for.
Oh my God.
Reality television again.
Yeah. And again, it's television. It's screens. It's not reality. It's not real life. It's not nature.
But these girls, the mother was saying that her boyfriend, and she'd been with the boyfriend for years since she was, 13, 14. And he was so seriously worried. He said, I'm going to break it off with you. I do not want you to do this.
Boys don't want it.
Yeah, it doesn't, it doesn't make any sense. But this idea, I want to look a certain way. And off she went, and horrendous, she showed me photographs, and I got sick. What, to have that mutilation done without any force, if she ever wants to have a baby, sort of thing, your body change, widens, all of the things that happen to a woman's body. What is going to happen to the lift? They don't think.
What is in the lift? What chemicals? What are they putting into the bloodstream? What are they putting into their body? And it comes back to that. We talk about, even the image, what coming down to define a woman, what is the image of a woman? What does a woman look like?
Yeah.
What does, and it's as if like women are being told, oh, you have to you have to have false nails, you've got to have false eyebrows, you've got to have extensions, you've got to have boob jobs, a bum lift or a bum job, you've got to have Botox and fillers.
Mm.
And that is actually changing the whole shape of a woman, in my opinion.
Mm.
And then women go, "Oh my God, I look old." Or what is happening to actually even we're all women of a certain age, you know, we're all I would imagine over 40. But what has happened to actually women even looking their age and enjoying just being their age without having to go for the fillers and you know
But something, Roshan, is something that's striking me that, I have to, we should remind ourselves, I should be reminded that after when you're talking to somebody, you don't see them, you're not looking, you don't see, you're listening to what they have to say, and you're saying, oh my God, that's really interesting. And Catherine Roshan, is really interesting what you're saying. Looks, they don't come into the picture. It's what is inside. And we constantly are being told that what on the outside is not good enough, and don't nurture the inside, for God's sake. But yet that is the only sustainable thing. Our insides, our intellects, our thoughts, our integrity, our decency as human beings, as women, shared experience,
well, we're coming
women
up
are
to
very hard on one another as well, I have
we're
to
coming
say.
up to the end because we've run over time now even. So because as we do when we get talking,
Yeah.
different things, with so much to say. But has the over sexualization of children, maybe that I'm talking about from when my children were young. I don't know when you noticed it, Gladys, but I noticed it with the Spice Girls with my daughter. That slow gradualization of over sexualizing the children and becoming little 5 and 6 year olds becoming aware of what other women who were selling manufactured pop stars, right? Has that over sexualization, that over images, has that been like normalizing to where we are now, with them with the Botox, the boot jobs, the Botox, to even where the gender ideology is, and even that say, oh, I need to even get the Botox. Oh, I need to go and get a boob job and things like that. Has that got then taken away the self confidence of the younger generation and dumbed them down um through the reality televisions, magazines, the media, movies, and the music industry?
But you can
It is
see
all
where
connected.
girls are the most ones that are changing, want to change. And you can see where the idea of when their bodies are changing at puberty, not wanting all of this notice, and that you have to have this particular boobie, the hair, the bum, the whole shooting gallery. So it's so much easier to just chop the whole lot off and change, and you could see how that would become, if you're very uncomfortable and hate all of that stuff, that would become quite comfortable to say, well, actually, there's a way out of this.
But you see,
And
it's
I'm a
an
boy.
industry. It's an industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
industry instead of an industry. It was like
Yeah.
smoking. They brought from a PR perspective, they brought out women smoking in magazines to make it sexy, so they could sell more cigarettes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how then, as mothers and other mothers listening to this, with children that over sexualized, or going like, what message do we give them? What advice do we give them? Catherine, what advice would you give to mothers our age out there whose children are doing this? They could be either questioning sexuality, they could be, even because I've noticed it's the 14-year-olds to 17-year-olds who are fed up with all this Botox and the gender ideology. I see it coming from the younger generation. They've had enough of it. They've had enough of women being demeaned and demoralized through the over sexualization and all this fake industry that the magazines, the media, the movie industry, and the reality televisions are telling women to look like. What do you think, Catherine? What advice would you give to mothers now and women?
Well, I would love to think that a lot of young women have had enough of it and are becoming more aware of it. But I mean, certainly the industry, seems to be just growing. Um, I mean, look, personally, I home educated my son. So not everybody can do that and not everybody wants to do it or thinks it's a great idea. But for me, that was a fantastic way of, I was able to, of course, there are outside influences too, but, I had more, I guess I had more influence and I had more control over what my son was exposed to, and also I was very, when he was 13, he got like a Nokia phone, but he didn't have a smartphone for many, many years. Not until he was, I think he got a SIM card to use a smartphone when he was out and about when he was 17. So I know that it might seem easy to say, just say no to phones and social media, but I think parents need to say no to it.
Yeah.
We have to take some control. This stuff is out there. Our kids are being exposed to it, but it is possible for parents to say no.
Yes.
You can say no. You cannot have Snapchat. You can't have Instagram. You can't have TikTok or whatever. And that's just it. Like, parents can't say no. We are in charge. I know that it's not easy.
Yeah, I was shocked to become aware that 11-year-olds were all on Be Real, and I said to parents, "Do you not know how dangerous that is?"
Well, I don't even know what that is. What is Be Real?
Be Real is a new app. I had to do it right. Be Real is a new social media app that they get notification that they have 2 minutes to put up a photograph of them there and then. And I said, that's so dangerous because that means social media knows exactly the location of your 11 and 12-year-olds are. It's so dangerous,
Yeah.
and it's like they're conditioned. Oh, I have to do my Be Real. And what they're doing is, like 11 and 12-year-olds putting up live location where they are. It's so dangerous.
It's dangerous, and it's also giving away so much data to people to market towards them. The marketing towards children and young adults and adults, of course, but I mean, you'd like to think that we are sensible enough to be aware that we're being marketed towards, but children, the marketing towards children is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I think we just try and protect children as much as we can from.
And we need to get that message out there. Start saying no to your children. Start
be the adult.
Yeah, being adults and taking control of our children again, and saying no to the media industry, to the music industry, the whole entertainment industry, and to the magazines and the marketing.
I think it's really worth doing, and it's just being a parent. It's hard work, and your kids won't always be happy. But I know certainly my son always says to me now that he's really glad that I had held strong with those limits around the internet and social media.
And there is that, I kind of feel that it really rearing children is a difficult, the hardest job you'll ever do. I honestly, I don't care what anybody says, sort of thing, that you're responsible for these little human beings and you want them to grow up to be, the best they can possibly be, with good self-esteem and all of the things, and they grow up to be around it, and all of the messaging that they're getting constantly. So it has to be terribly difficult for parents. So I'm not so hard on them, because they've jobs that they might lose tomorrow. And then what happens to the house and all of these worries? I remember these worries myself, so it's very, very difficult. But that machine that has got so much information and knows so much about you also knows about your children. They give out all of this information willingly because they don't know any different. You've got to stay on top of it. You've got to stand behind them. And I think I remember years ago somebody saying, you know, the computer's in the room that you're in, you know, so that you're keeping an eye on what they're at. But now everybody's gone to their separate rooms or separate places with this small device. So that, you know, so it's harder to keep that level of control, you know. So I just feel so sorry
it's
for
coming
them.
up to International Women's Day. So we said what advice you give to children and young moms. What advice would you give to women now? I would say from 45 up. What advice would you give the women?
I would say, be honest with yourself, and I don't know, it's hard to say, it's hard to have, you know, it's hard not to sound trite when you say these things, but I think, you know, it's important to value honesty and, you know, I think fostering good relationships with other women is really, really important. So maybe that would be my advice, to, you know, foster your bonds with other women. That's a really, really important thing. And I appreciate that more as I get older.
Yeah. I would agree, Catherine. I think, you know, have women's backs, you know, we're very critical of one another. We, you know, sometimes is warranted, you know, sort of thing, like, and we don't get on with everybody, and that's okay too. And everybody, I remember being young and thinking, why don't they like me? I wanted everybody to like me, because I thought that was, and then I realized, well, you know, I actually don't really particularly like them. So why? And the realization, everybody doesn't have to like you. You don't have to like everybody, do you know? And it's important that you learn that you have your own integrity, you know.
I think
and
that too. Yeah.
yeah,
But talking about integrity, do you know what I would say? I would say to any woman now is start living to your own values, your own principles, and living your own purpose, and with intention, and making sure that you put boundaries in place.
Yes.
I think that's what I would say now to any woman who, you know, what boundaries, make sure that, you know, the whole thing of connecting with yourself, build that relationship with yourself. And that when you're doing that, you can build those wonderful relationships that you're talking about with other women, Catherine. And then, Gladys, for me, that's about that integrity.
Yeah, and just think what we've done. We've done the most amazing thing. We've brought beautiful human beings into the world. You know, our bodies did that with the help, obviously. We didn't do it by ourselves. So fathers are important if they're around or whatever. But we did, our bodies did. I'm just amazed at this power, you know, and we cared for them. Most of us did our best, absolute best, and we're desperately hard on ourselves. So I think maybe we could be a little bit kinder to ourselves, just maybe the odd day, say, do you know something? Do you know what? You're okay. You're grand.
You're okay.
You are grand. You're a good egg. You
because
know,
the relationship we have with ourselves is the relationship we have with other women, in my opinion. The relationship we have with ourselves is the relationship I'm going to have with Catherine and Gladys, because if I like me, I'm gonna naturally, and I'm patient with me, and I understand me. That's gonna give me a better sort of sounding board to actually have a conversation with you both and say, yeah, you know what, it's lovely being a woman. I love being a woman, and I love having my other women friends, and sharing things with and talking about everything what women do, and all things that worry us, and we're talking about. And I think that's something sacred, and that's why I'm really so adamant in canvassing and being such an advocate for the no in the referendum. I think it's taken away that the most precious thing of the relationship between the mother and the child, and a woman and baby and women, and being that mother. For me, it's the most wonderful, magical experience being a woman and being a mother.
Yeah, and I think, I would just say, and I've thought about this a lot because I've lost a really good friend through, a horrible illness, who was the most beautiful educator, the most beautiful educator of other women's children, as a beautiful teacher and a beautiful mother to her own children, and a beautiful friend, and gone from this mortal coil, gone. If we were let, and she was always saying, as the time, came closer, to care about ourselves, to give ourselves a break, It's very tough being a woman. It's very hard. Give ourselves a break, don't be so hard. And she did say, take some time out to enjoy yourself, and if you can take that message, I would hope. It's very hard to you think of it one day and I'm going to live my life like this forever, but life gets in the way and you forget.
And Catherine, the last word to you before we leave.
Oh, the last word to me. Oh my gosh, I'm totally on the spot now. I don't know what to say. But I think, yes, I agree with everything there that Greta said. To try and be good to ourselves, but yes, life gets in the way. And but this kind of thing is great. I think women supporting each other and forging bonds and standing up for each other. I think now in the current times, it's always been important, but it's very, very important now. Standing up for each other and for children and for our right to do the things that we need to do. We need to be mothers because nobody else can do it.
Yeah,
well, you know what, ladies, I thoroughly enjoyed this
me too.
tonight and or today or this afternoon, whatever time anyone's watching. I thoroughly enjoyed you both coming on and talking about what it is to be a mother, what it is to be a woman, and our mothers, thinking about our mothers, and even coming up to Mother's Day, thinking about our own mothers and how important that is to us, and about the over sexualization of children, the media, and to everything else. Which I just think it's lovely just to be a woman and sharing everything with other women as well, like yourselves, and bringing women together. We're all from different parts of the country, and I think that's lovely, that we can all be joined together in celebrating what it is to be a woman and what it is to be a mother, especially this weekend, which is in it for the Mother's Day, the International Women's Day, and for the referendum of the definition of a woman and a mother, and the care at home as well. So I want to thank you for taking the time to watch Confident Women Ireland's panel, this show, and thank you for taking the time and joining us and listening to the show. And thank you so much indeed.